It's said sometimes that quote unquote external solutions cannot fix internal problems. Meaning, for example, I can't improve my self esteem by becoming more externally successful. I cannot improve my self image by getting plastic surgery. I can't improve my relationships by becoming wealthier, right, and showing off more. To what extent is that so? And to what extent is that not perhaps so? Or what are some limitations to that seemingly common sense view? Well, first of all, let's try to strengthen that point of view. What can be certainly said for it is that if I live thoughtlessly, uncritically, and just do things because I feel like it, because they seem like the things to do, there is no guarantee that I will mature. There is no guarantee that I will correct my character or that I will come to any new understandings. We see that it is possible to live a life, even of supreme action, and to never really, apparently, intellectually, morally, mentally, if that's different, mature or change. Right? If we want to find somebody with supreme insight onto life and onto people, somebody might say, well, go to somebody that has interacted with a ton of people, maybe a politician, right? Something like this. But there's no guarantee that that is so. If that were to be so, it would be because of something else and not simply because the person kind of shook the hands of a lot of people. Right? If you want to find something out about power, go to a dictator, and he or she will explain to you theoretically, in principle, what is power. Now, go to, for example, a political scientist or somebody like this. Even something like, let's say, the anatomy. Right? If you want to find out the ultimate or the utmost of what science has to say concerning the body, go to a bodybuilder. They have the biggest muscles, right? But no, there's no guarantee that the bodybuilder knows the first thing about the body from that scientific point of view. He or she might, but that would be because of his or her separate studies, which are in addition to the exercise. Right, to find out the technicalities concerning the anatomy, again, go to an exercise scientist, to a specialist. Something along those lines. Why is that so? Well, because we can operate something without knowing how it operates or without ever gaining any insight into, how it operates. I don't need to know the first thing about how a phone works in order to use it. Billions of people use smartphones, but billions of people cannot construct a smartphone or cannot explain exhaustively how it works. Only specialized engineers and people that have studied it perhaps might, and they're also probably to a limited extent. So we see that life can be lived extensively, and there's no guarantee that it will ever, that will ever in itself even slightly increase the real insight that we have into life. And insight, of course, is the operative word as it concerns improving ourselves, to correcting those inner issues, internal problems that were mentioned. Without insight, I'm blind. And if I'm blind, I can't see. And if I can't see, I won't be helped. Right? The first thing we need, if we're in a dark room, for example, is some light, unless we want to feel our way. I didn't risk that. Maybe I'm walking in the woods, right, and it's pitch black. I could fall into a hole or slip or something if I can't see anything. If I can turn on some light, even just from my phone or a little flashlight, that can be very helpful. So to correct internal problems, I need insight. I need to gain some kind of glimmer as to the why and the how and what ought to be and such. For example, I need an insight that the reason that kind of a miserable is connected with, say, my self centeredness, with unrealistic expectations as to life. Simply doing stuff will not by itself generate that insight. So that's strengthening that position. What can be said for the converse position that doing things certainly can be useful to correcting internal problems? Well, in principle, in theory, it seems that real thought of the contemplative variety, as seen in, say, high philosophy, things like that, could be enough to correct all of our problems. But the presupposition is that it is real thought, which is very difficult to attain to. So the idea then would be to facilitate that real thought. Action can be very helpful. So, for example, if I could, in one fell swoop, grasp the sense of a statement such as you ought not to be self-centered and you ought to serve and love others at least as much as yourself or as much as yourself. If I could truly grasp that and internalize it from the first reading, well, then that would be done. But I can't do that. For that, I need action. Go to work, right? Serve people. Don't think about myself. Things like this. If I could really, let's say a psychologist analyzes me and gives me a bullet list of all the problems I have and kind of traces them to the initial origins. If I look at that list and I immediately make the modifications, in theory, well, then I did make the modifications. But that's not usually how it works. It requires action, it requires effort. So here, action and effort can help lead to that insight. For example, let's say that I have an insecurity concerning my body. I feel inferior concerning my physique. If I could fix that with thought, that's all that's needed. But it can be helpful to, for example, go to the gym, get in shape, and see, oh, well, I can also get in shape. I'm not qualitatively fundamentally different than other people that are in shape. I'm not fundamentally inferior to them. And there we go. And then I correct that internal issue with the aid of external activity, but not by itself. So, in summary, it could be suggested that thoughtlessly, mindlessly doing will not correct our internal issues. We have no idea what is going on or why it's going on. We're blind, we're groping around in the dark, and we just do something. It's probably not going to help. But if I can turn on the light bulb, should we say, a little bit, I can think, and I'm willing to think a little bit. I'm willing to be a little bit intentional in my life. Then I can and ought to use action to aid my internal problems, right? And not only problems, but my internal maturity and my development, right? For example, again, I can say, this is what triggers me. These are my insecurities. These are my vices. And now I'm going to get to work day in and day out doing something and thinking and combining that thought and that action. And that hopefully should indeed address those internal issues. So we can think about it. Thank you for listening.